Okay, welcome everybody to the magical Tea Talks and Coffee 2. I'm your host, Valeri McLaughlin, intuitive heart healer, energy artist, spiritual guide, helping you to connect to your heart-centered magic so you can live a life connected greater to spirit, filled with love, joy, happiness, guided by your intuition. And my wonderful co-host, my wonderful co-host.
I'm Cindy Hernandez. I'm a licensed massage therapist, NLP practitioner, and immigrant identity coach. I help women and men move through, immigrant barriers that we are placed on us, and sometimes we place on ourselves. I help break through that.
Yeah. And we have an interesting conversation for you today, talking about judgment. And Cindy was telling me about a trip she had to Asbury, and kind of sparked this whole topic for today.
Yeah. So one of the topics that we're going to talk about is judgment, and like how we have it like so engraved in us, and how we just continue to judge each other, regardless if we're in the same race, in the same family, in the same like world. We still judge each other constantly.
Yeah. It always surprised me, and ever since like I started to become get to know more about the LGBTQ community, it had always surprised me, and this is over 20 years now, how they are so judgmental with each other, and like how a community that wants to be included, wants people to love and accept them who they are, and that's what they go out and they are asking everybody in the world to do, and I'm part of that community, and how they are like so judgmental of each other. And like I remember the story back in my mid-20s. I was at a bar, and my best friend is a gay guy, and we always hung out together. And we're at this bar, and he was talking to this older gay man that had been there, that I had talked to too. And he comes up to me and he goes, "I normally hate lesbians, but I like you." And I'm like, "Well, thank you." And I just kind of like left it at that. I didn't get into everything, but that had always been like the battle between like the gay men and the lesbians. And it really wasn't until like the 80s and that they started to become more connected with each other through the AIDS epidemic. But still, even like between like transgender and bisexual, like bisexuals get such a bad rap. Like people are like, "Oh, just decide." I'm like, why does it have to be a decision? Like, did you just decide to be the way you are, or was that how you always were? So it just always blows my mind at how this happens in that community, but it happens in other communities too.
Oh yeah. And so like yesterday we were at Asbury Park, and one of the things that came up was like, wow, there's a lot of Hispanics around here. That's kind of like surprising, because this is like a high class place. And I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? Like, why do you have to like judge it that way? And it's sad, because you want people, to be successful regardless, like of where they come from. You just want them to be successful. So then when somebody that is Hispanic is successful, they're like, well, that's odd that that person's successful. They're Spanish. Like that's not something that's capable for Spanish people. So it's kind of just like, why would you even judge that? But it happens so often, and it gets engraved in us, even little. Like if I wasn't in the mentality that I am now, I probably would have been like, yeah, you're right. I would have agreed with them. Like, but instead I was like, no, I don't want to believe that. And I don't believe that, because I know where I'm at right now. I know. And so, but like that stuff gets engraved. So like if my daughter were to hear that, she'd be like, oh yeah, they're Spanish. They can't, you know, we shouldn't be here because we're Spanish or something like that. And that stuff gets engraved and for generations. So like, imagine like what my parents, my aunts grew up with. Like they grew up with a lot of negative talk. Well, not negative, but like that talk that just isn't in the best interest for all of us. So they grow up with it and then they carry it. And then now they're like feeding it to us. But like, do I want to take that in? No, thank you. But now I can see it and I can probably help them shift a little bit. Like, hey, we can all have, you know, enjoy our lives.
Do you think that some of that has to do with coming over here from a country where considered, you know, compared to the United States is like not as successful as the United States, and then they come here and most of them have very little.
Yeah. Oh yeah. A lot. It has a lot to do because like, well, especially where I'm from, like Honduras is like a third world country. So it's like the poorest. And one of the things, like a lot of beliefs get carried and they come with this expectation that they're going to come here to, you know, work hard and achieve all of these things, but then in the midst of working hard, they forget life. They forget that they can enjoy it, and they, you know, lose track of everything. And then they're too busy, you know, doing stuff that they start to judge other people because, you know what, they wanted that, but they forgot what the reason why they came here.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
the reason why they came here was for more freedom and more of that. But instead of getting that freedom, they just continued to like work their ass off.
The other question that came up just now was, do they consider their freedom based on money?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. A lot. Like it's almost like they put like this money on a pedestal. Like especially like if I go over there, like this is why like I'm a coach for this, is because like we don't fit in anywhere. I don't fit in here because I'm Spanish, and then I don't fit in over there because I'm too much, like I'm too white and I have too much money because I come from America and stuff like that. And that's one of the things that's like they're like, oh yeah, you're wealthy because you have, you know, a house, you have all these things, and you have, and then that's where like, I don't know, there's so much judgment that goes around there.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. I feel like the LGBT community, like they're so used to people judging them that even though they don't want people to judge them, but they're so used to being judged, and not just by like, you know, but like what you hear on TV and everything, and then it's automatically like
Yeah.
they look for somebody to judge. Oh, I can judge you because you're in my community, and that's like not a bad thing because because we're in the same community, it's okay.
Yeah, yeah. It happens so much though. That's so funny. Like it just, and that's, we were talking with one of my cousin's husbands, and he was like, oh, I'm getting judged or something like that. I was like, yeah, that happens a lot here. Like they all judge each other, and it doesn't matter if it's your freaking mother, she's gonna judge you for whatever you do. Like it's just, I don't know, it's just like something that they think that it has to be done because they're right. And
Mhm.
like the way that we do things is different. It's not like the same as them. So then that's where it's like a issue, because it's like they want us to, you know, be a certain way. And especially in Hispanic communities, like one of the things is like, okay, as a wife, you have to cater to your husband. You have to do all of these things, quote unquote, have to, right? Because if not, then you're not a good wife. Or what are you doing? And then the expectation for the husband is like, he has to work all the time while you stay home and be, you know, the mom and the wife and do all of the things. And if he's not maintaining you, then, oh God forbid, like he is a terrible husband. So it's like this thing, like, when did we decide that, you know, that's how things need to be constantly? Like things are shifting. We're not the same anymore. We like to, you know, figure out who we are as women. And when we're in that cage of just, you know, being a wife, being a mother, like, then it's like, who are we? We're
Yeah.
just people to cater for other people. And that's where it gets lost. And it's like, okay, no, I don't think that we should all do that.
Yeah, and it made me think of the movie Mr. Mom, which I think was out in the 80s, where like the dad lost his job, but the wife was able to go out and get like this job that like was the same, like a great job, and he could stay home and he could take care of the kids. And it was like, I remember it being like this big, like almost controversial, like, oh, like this is really going to happen. And now you see it, like you see it nowadays where like the husband will take on that role, and then people start to judge you, oh, well, you like a sissy, or like you can't go out. But it's not about that. Like, just
Yeah.
as much as a woman wants to go out and do something in this world, there are men that want to be their nurturers, that want to take care of the kids, or they
Yeah.
they want more like a balance and ebb and flow in the relationship, and there's nothing wrong with that. But as a society, we're so used to having like it's this or this, that we don't see that middle ground. And you can see that today, like, with the people that wear masks and the people don't wear a mask. It's like there's no middle ground. It's like they believe so much that they're right, and they believe so much that they're, no one's listening to anybody else. And that, I mean, that's just one example of a lot that's going on today, where it's like it's becoming so divided. And instead of becoming this community where we're all united for the same thing, we're dividing
Mhm.
ourselves.
Yeah, and it's so true. Like it's either this or this, and then uh, yeah, it just it like we need to listen. That was what, like, listen to each other. You don't have to agree with somebody, but just listen and be open to it.
Yeah, because you never know where that person's coming from. Like, you don't
Mhm.
know why that person is doing something. So if somebody feels safe to go out and wear a mask because they have to take care of their 80-year-old mother at home, like, whether it's a male, female, or whatever, like, why would you judge that person for taking care of their family and
Yeah,
not even giving a moment? Like, you don't have to agree with them, but they're doing what they feel is best and what's true to them. and
yeah,
and they have to honor that. And the other thing is, like, we can all be individuals. We can
yeah,
be individuals and have our own individuality, but still come together as one.
yeah.
We don't have to be that clone of each other.
And I'm actually gonna add to this because, like, one of the breakthroughs that I had this week is, like, educating people. And what comes up is like, okay, yes, I know certain things, but if I don't educate you and I don't let you know, and coming from a place of educating and not, proving myself wrong or proving myself right or proving you wrong or proving you right, like, not from that place, but from a place of, this is what I know and this is how I learned and this is what I know. So I can teach you from this, educating, and not like we sometimes get defensive. Like, I have to defend it. Like, for me, okay, it was like, okay, I have to defend my massage therapist people. Like, my massage therapist, all the massage therapists, I have to defend them because nobody understands where we're coming from. Nobody understands like the work that we have to do or what we have to do. But when I'm coming from that space, it's like they don't know. Nobody knows. Like, you may not know like what I went through. So unless I, educate you and let you know, like, look, listen, this is how things work over here, and this is how I would like things to work out. But, you know, we assume that everybody knows already, so
Mm-hmm.
that they already know that, we went through so much schooling, that we went through so much stuff. Like, we assume that you already know that. We're not educating you.
Yeah.
We're not educating you and letting you know, like, this is how things are.
Yeah. And that's like with everything. Like, when I worked in the restaurant business, people are like, oh, well, I can buy a pasta for this much and this and at the store. And I'm like, yeah, you could, but what kind of pasta are you getting? Like, and are you buying sauce from a jar? Because everything is made here fresh. It's all like, man, And, the whole thing that goes into it, the rent on the building, the ordering the product, the receiving, the making the product, the cleaning, like everything goes into the price of one dish. It's not just about the dish,
Yeah.
because there's so much more, and people just look at it as like, oh, well, I can make this at home for this. And like, you could, but you came out for an experience.
Yeah.
You came out for experience, and you came out so you didn't have to do this. You didn't have to go to the grocery store. You didn't have to cook the meal. You didn't have to clean on it. And somebody actually waited on you. So you're
Yeah.
not just paying for the dish, you're paying for the whole experience. And like people don't look at it that way.
Yeah.
And sometimes you do have to like educate people, because they don't see it. If they've never worked in that industry, they don't know.
Yeah. And also it's like you have to think about like what they grew up in. And maybe like that person was coming from a background that like, their parents didn't like eating out because, it was too much money. So then they went out to eat just to experience it. And then they were like, oh, this is too expensive. But that's coming from their parents because that was engraved in them,
Yeah.
And that happens with all of us. Like the Hispanic community happens all the time. Like so much subconscious things pop up.
Yeah. And speaking of subconscious things, I wanted to talk about this video I saw on Facebook. I think my friend Mickey shared it. And it was a lady that was a teacher, and she was showing the map of the world, the flat map of the world. And she was like, through this map, we are teaching our children racism, is what she was calling it. But in other words, like, we were like saying that certain countries are bigger than the other. So just as an example of the map of the world, Greenland was like this big. And then South America was like this big. And in actuality, like Greenland's like this big and South America's like this big. And so like the map is distorted. So right off the bat, like we're learning from a map, because it's mostly the map that is shown like on the, when you walk into the classroom and, up on the board, that, the certain places are bigger than others, and our perception bigger is better, right? That's, how we grow up. And then she made this great point, is like the equator is supposed to be in the middle. And so the map shows the United States and everything up here, and then South America down here. And where does the equator run through? South America. It runs through there. So it's already like even lower than where it actually should be on the map. And it's just like, teaching us that we are up higher, that we are better. And then when she took a map and showed the map of what things look like if it was like done to scale, pretty much, it's still a little distorted because, the earth is round and we're doing a flat map. But like Greenland was like this big, South America was big, it was moved up on the map. Alaska, that looked like a whole nother country, was actually down to its normal size. And Canada was not as like big as it was. And it was really interesting because the other map was a map that the Pope asked, I forget who it was, to do to show where Christianity was, and like make that bigger so people would think that those places were better. And this is what we're showing the kids, and this is what is subconsciously putting into our minds.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
whether we realize it or not, we are being programmed.
A lot.
And so not only is education important, but also a well-rounded education of actual truths, whatever they are, which at this point we don't even know.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And that's where it comes to like really being in your heart center so that you could feel what's right. What is right to you. And you know what? Today it might be, this is a mug, and that is true to you at this moment. And tomorrow or Thursday when we get together and be like, oh, you're drinking out of a cup. and now it's a cup and not a mug because that's what's true to you today. And it's not that you flip-flop, it's because you learned something along the way and you gained more wisdom and knowledge from either within yourself or from your guides to make a different uh, whatever, different assumption or different truth of what it actually is.
Yeah. Yeah. And our truths are all different. Like your truth is different from my truth.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to understand about like other people. So like for my aunt, maybe her truth is that, you know, Hispanic people shouldn't be there or aren't capable of being there. And then my truth was that, you know what, I think we should all, you know, this is a diverse place. Like I think we could all be here.
Yeah. And, you know, it's not to say that one is better than the other, because
Mhm.
that's just this. It's just your
Yeah,
truth.
it's just your world. Like this is all our world. We make what we want out of it.
Yep. And, you know, and if you are both willing to listen to each other, you can
Hmm.
gain something out of it.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
like for me, it was a big lesson. It was like, wow, this is like not just her. This is a lot of people. This is, you know, this is how a lot of people see the world. This is how, you know, I see my world, and there's a lot of people that see it this way. And maybe in the past, I would have been like, not a lot of people see the way that I see.
mhm.
And that was one of my biggest faults is like, you know, nobody understands me. Nobody sees the way that I see. And then I started meeting people like Val, and then I started meeting people like, you know, that are into like opening their mind and understanding differently. And it just made me realize a lot of things. Like we all have similar thoughts, but we often don't, you know, take the time to listen.
Yeah. And evolve. It's all
Yeah.
about evolving. Really, Ascension's all about evolving and growing. And
Yeah.
and just be humble. The more you do that, the more you just open yourself up to even more things. The other interesting thing that I just kind of wanted to bring up, even though you saw this judgment that was happening, how were you feeling at the time?
I was okay. Like I was just like really shocked that it came out of her mouth. I was like, whoa, wow, that's true. A lot of things come. And then I was talking to my cousin's husband, and I was like, you know, you heard that, right? And then he was like, yeah, but you know what? You said that to me yesterday that like, you know, we get judged all the time, and that was one of the things. I was like, yeah, it's true. And then he was like, yeah, you know what? Like your family judges a lot, and I listen to them, and I listen to everybody judge everybody, and I'm just like, wow. And then I was like, we just started like talking about it, and it was like, okay, it was just like, you know what? This is interesting because this happens so much. And then it had me thinking about like how things are so engraved in us, and how all of these beliefs are engraved in us. And if I wasn't like open to just listening and not receiving it, just like allowing myself to listen to where she's coming from, then it makes me understand it. Like, okay, I understand where you're coming from. I understand because I know that you're where you come from. I know that you come from this country, and I know that I know your family. Like they're my family. So it's understanding for me in that point, and it makes me understand other people too. Like I understand where you're coming from, that you believe this.
Yeah, and so even though, and the point I was trying to make, which you did such a great job of it by the way you answered it, is that even though you see the judgment, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It allows you to bring in more awareness. And so the
Yeah,
judgment that is happening isn't triggering you because you are open to listen so that you can
yeah,
understand it
yeah.
more and where it's coming from. And that is really, 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 really important.
Yeah, and it comes back to being like not defensive about it. Cause I could have been like, no, you're wrong. Like, that's not true. Like, I could have just argued with her, like, you know, we're here, we're Spanish.
Yeah. Yeah. And instead you're like, oh, it allowed you to be reflective to see where it was coming from. And then that helps you. And then you can deliver a message that may help somebody else,
Yeah, yeah,
or, have that more information to help other people grow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's important. And just being in awareness of when you notice those things and then getting to like where this is coming from.
Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to touch on is that we start to normalize it. And when we normalize it, we can't change it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we're so used to hearing that judgment that we're like, okay, that's normal. So like if I, like for my family, that is normal to judge, right? But instead of normalizing it, I could just be like, you know what? I don't like that we judge each other, but you know what? I can maybe talk to them and make them open up and see differently. But that's the thing. When we normalize things, we can't change them.
Yeah. Yeah. And not being defensive also allows you to have an open, honest conversation,
Yeah.
where you're not like attacking, and it shifts the whole energy,
Mm-hmm.
so like I had a healing yesterday and somebody opened the door, like jerked open the door, and like you could see everybody like jump. And like, when you are come at somebody like that, like, no, you're wrong, they go like this, and it changes the whole energy. But if you're, if somebody just like gently opened the door and walked in, it would kind of been more like this, and nobody would have necessarily noticed it. And then it allows you, when you come at a conversation like that, to be able, the person's not jumping back or attacking you, they're just like right here, and you're meeting them at a different space so that you can have more of an open dialogue.
Yeah, and now that you say that, when you hear speak up about things, yes, speak up, but don't scream. Like, and that's where things get confused. People think that you need to scream, and that was one of my biggest things. It's like I felt like I needed to scream because people weren't listening. But you know what? I don't need to scream. I just need to speak. And when I speak, things shift.
And come from your heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, come from this place of love.
Yeah.
It all comes back to love.
It does. It's all just connected. Everything.
Right back there.
Yeah.
Anything else to add? I think we had a wonderful conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like we could continue to talk on this topic for even longer and longer and longer, but
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. There's so much that comes back to it. And we'll probably, touch up on this again.
yeah.
And so I wanted to leave them with, just being open and listening. And then when you listen, notice when the judgment is coming through, even your own judgment, because sometimes when we're about to speak, it's like, oh, should I have said that? That was like something that I was judging myself in, or something that I was judging others in. And then also listening to the other person and their judgment and where they're coming from, and just listening.
Yeah. And that, you remind me of somebody said to me yesterday, maybe I shouldn't be so open and honest. And I said, oh, please don't do that, because that's one of the things I really love about you, is that you're so open and honest. So if I do something and, it makes you feel comfortable, or it came across to you in a certain way, I want to know, so I'm aware of it. And she goes, well, people can't take it. And I said, well, that's them. I said, and that is something that they have to deal with. I said, please don't change who you are to accommodate other people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, that's that saying, like, the truth hurts. Well, the truth only hurts if you haven't healed that part of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So some food for thought. If you guys have any questions or comments, please leave them below. If you would like to have us discuss a topic that you have a question about, please either leave a comment, you can message either one of us, or send us an email at magicalteatalks@gmail.com. And we will be happy to get your questions answered on our lives, and bring you in as a part of it. Give you credit for the question.
Yeah.
So,
And where can they find you, Val? And what are you offering this month?
well, tomorrow I'm having a group beach healing in Atlantic City, but you can go ahead and reach me at intuitivehearthealer.com. If you're looking to go into your ancestral timelines and clear them out and release some of those energetic ties you have to them, I have an ancestral healing that is perfect for you that you can find on the booking pages. We can do it right online. It is not in person, and it is absolutely amazing. And it releases not only your ancestral timelines in this timeline that you're in, but also in your past timelines that you have brought into this world that we are in right now.
Yeah, that was one of my favorites. The ancestral timeline. I had one of those healings and it was amazing. Totally recommend it. And then you guys can find me at cinderellaspa.com. I am a massage therapist, so I have an office in Brigantine. And then you can book me online too. I do the coaching online. And yeah, follow me on Instagram at Cinderella Spa. Yeah.
Quick question, just do you have like a coaching call so that people can connect with you to see if they actually
Yeah, I have free clarity calls. Like I'm actually doing the clarity calls for my massage therapy too. So because I'm doing things a little bit different now. And so I would like to know what's going on emotionally, physically, all of the things so that I can help you in the long run and not in just, a short term.
I love that. I love that you do that for the massage therapy. I have the intuitive heart call, which is a free 20-minute call just to see where we're at, to see if we're working. Because when it is important that you connect with the person.
Yeah.
And you do. Like, if I do guidance, I'm not going to sit here and say, you're going to have this happen in the next 6 months, because I believe we all have free will, but I will give you guidance based on your energy and let you know where you're headed. So it's always good to have those conversations. And I love the fact you're doing it for your massage now too.
Yeah. I like to really know what's going on because a lot of these things are connected to, our emotional state, our thoughts, our patterns. And so helping you release it in the long term. And that was always my goal, is like helping you release things long term rather than just a quick fix, because nothing's ever a quick fix.
Yeah. Totally agree. Well, I will see you again on Thursday.
Yes.
Until next time, sending all my love to all of you. And we will see you on Thursday.